y'all, it's Brandon with Voodoo Forge, and today we're going to be working on a stump anvil. Now real quick, generally what a stump anvil is it is a small anvil that you can drive into a wooden stump or post, and you can do light anvil work on. Not necessarily hot work, but sometimes you need an anvil for things. This is another project that I'm sending to the Dead Man channel up there in Alaska. There'll be a link down here, and I'll explain more about that later. But stump anvils, you know, these anvils from the Middle Ages and earlier were usually small little guys like this, and they did a lot of work on them. But let's get one made. This is a drive shaft of some kind. Now it should be a medium carbon steel, but I don't know for sure. It's found material, so I need to cut a little slice off and experiment with it. But before I do that, I want to kind of normalize it so it's a little easier to cut. While I've got it up to heat, I'm going to normalize more than just the end of it. Alright. This ought to be good. Roar! Now we'll just let this guy cool off naturally. Alright, she's cooled off now, so I'm going to cut it to a more manageable length. This is like 7 1/4 inches. Now let's slice off a little bit. Keep in mind, this is an unknown steel. I'm thinking it should be a medium carbon steel, but is it hardenable? Is it high carbon? Is it just regular mild? You know, who knows? But you're never going to be able to figure it out for sure, but there are ways that a good blacksmith can do some kind of studying on this and figure out what it is. That's not one of them. We're going to do something totally different. I've cut a couple of similar in size pieces off of that little wafer we had, and I'm going to throw them in the forge and heat them up to critical temperature, and then I'm going to quench one of them in oil and one of them in water, and then I'm going to hit them with a hammer. Okay. It's non-magnetic, going in the water. This is our water quench piece, and I've got a face shield on. Right in there. Ah. Well, that didn't do anything interesting. Let's try hitting it that way. Yeah, that didn't break, so we didn't even have to test the other piece. That is mild steel. It's not going to be hardenable. If you can take it and quench it in water and it not be brittle, then we know it's probably not even a medium carbon. I'm not gonna lie, that is not how I thought this was going to go at all. Now that we know that we're dealing with a big chunk of mild steel, tack a handle on it and go from there. Gotta use a different anvil for this. Okie dokie. There's that. The reason why I've thrown the 132 pound Achayo back on here is because it has an 1 3/16 hardy hole, and it also has a very thick place. That's what I'm gonna forge the shaft of this stake anvil through this. So that's what I'm gonna go for. First, of course, we're gonna neck it down, and then we're gonna drive it in there and create a good shoulder. Handle cool. That's out. After several heats, we've got it where it fits way down in there, and the shaft extends past the anvil. So we're gonna let this cool off right now and come back to it. Okay, now we need to deal with this situation right here. Now what has happened, and this is very common when you're forging out large material, is as we're forging this out, the outside of the material starts moving faster than the material on the inside. And you get a fish lipping wrapping around of material, and it makes voids in here. Now when you're forging it, this is easy enough to avoid. After you draw it down a little bit, then you take it to the anvil and you take your hammer and you upset this back into the main material. However, that really slows things down, and we're not dealing with a situation here where this is a rare and hard to come across material. So what we're gonna do to deal with this is we're just gonna cut this off, and then we're gonna draw it the rest of the way to a point. Now this doesn't have to come to a point, but I want it to. So it's going to. I'm just trying to get everything on our stake kind of lined up and square. Before you pull this thing out of the forge, you need to make sure you can walk all the way around your anvil. Starting to form those shoulders there. That's a little better. Anyway, it's not awful. Let's let that cool off and then get the grind in it. Cool off now, so we're gonna get the grind in this. it's going to be in our best interest to use a larger grinder. I've been grinding on this about 15 minutes. Here's where we're at. Most of it's down. I've got a little dip here and these over here, these little hammer marks. I think I'm going to keep grinding until this one's gone, and then I'm going to kind of round this edge over. Because you don't want all square edges, even on a little bitty hammer. Okay, so I'm going to flatten this side a little bit since it's already a little flat. And then I'm going to roll this edge a little. Now I'm just going to blend everything with a flat disc. I'm going to clean these shoulders up a little bit. Now I don't believe we're going to be able to forge Excalibur on this, but let's see if we can draw this to a point. More heat on it. There's no doubt this would move around quite a bit less when it is driven into a stump. Right there. We've drawn something to a point, so it works. I just need to wire whaler a little. Yeah, well, there's our finished product. She is 10.5 inches or just under 27 centimeters long. The face is going to be 2 3/4 wide. Let's see how long I guess. Yeah, we got the shaft up to about 2 1/4 over the, was it like 1 7/8 is what we started with. So it's not bad. It's upset. It could be upset more. But I think it will serve its purpose. Alright, well, we got this thing made, and I want to explain to you a little why I wanted to make this now. The Dead Men channel up in Alaska, I just kind of stumbled across it one day, and it's an outdoor channel in Alaska, but they're doing one thing that they're doing is they built a off-grid off-grid cabin that you have to either fly into in the summertime or you can take snowmobiles to in the wintertime. And that really got my head to thinking, if I had to pay out the wazoo, which, you know, when you're flying, weight makes a big difference. If I had to pay for every piece of metal that went into somewhere, into a wilderness area, what are some things that I would absolutely want to have? And this is one of those things on that list, is an anvil of some kind. I'd want a bigger anvil. Now I know everybody doesn't think like that because everybody's not a blacksmith, and they don't have piles of scrap metal laying around. So I don't think that this will be used for any blacksmithing projects really. But you always need an anvil around, even if it's just a block of steel that sits on your workbench. There's always something you need to straighten out. There's a lot of uses for an anvil outside of blacksmithing. It is a homestead, a wilderness life tool. It's not a wilderness survival tool, don't mistake what I'm saying, but it's a tool that in a wilderness environment can come in pretty handy. So my idea of having an anvil out there turned to a stump anvil. So I'm going to send this to them and see what they think of it, and if they can even use it. You know, it might not be something that they can use. It's something in my mind super important because I'm a blacksmith, so that's the way it goes. And if you've gotten by in life without an anvil, I don't know how you've done it. Like, that's pretty impressive. Now, another thing that occurred to me when I had this idea was, I don't know if it is the most reasonable anvil idea. Let me tell you why. Something else that makes a pretty good ad hoc anvil is a sledgehammer. And if you have a sledgehammer, you have another tool. You have the sledgehammer, but you can use it as an anvil. Nonetheless, I thought that a stump anvil would be a cool project, and Yeah, so I'm gonna make it and send it up there to those boys. And if you hadn't watched their channel, check the link. It's really good. They've got some really good content. So anyway, what do you think? What would you, in a wilderness area where weight was an issue and you were going to do something permanent, what would you want anvil wise? Do you think you'd need an anvil at all for any reason? Would it be worth taking a full-size anvil, sledgehammer, stump anvil? Let me know what you think. I'm interested in your feedback. So anyway, I hope y'all got something out of this, and y'all behave yourselves.